accordance with the town board's adoption of local law number 14 of 2022. The board's meetings are being held both in person at Town Hall and via video conference through Zoom webinar. The link to participate in this meeting via video conference can be found on the town's website at the town clerk's agendas and meeting portal. You can also watch the live stream video and submit written comments for the public record through the town website. The Zoom webinar is being moderated by CTV. If you are attending this meeting via Zoom and you wish to speak during the meeting, then please type in the chat box which application you are here for, so the moderator can let you in at the appropriate time. As a reminder to all applicants, agents, and members of the public who wish to speak at the meeting, please state your name and hamlet of residence for the record. Thank you. We will go direct, we will get up and say the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First on the agenda,
Do you want to do the roll call?
a roll call.
Do you usually do the roll call? See make sure you have a quorum.
I don't remember that, do we?
No?
No.
How do we do? I'll do it, Kelly. How do I do it?
Oh, okay.
Other boards do it,
Other
but we
boards
haven't
do
done
it.
it.
Oh, okay.
Usually Harry just indicates that we have
We
a
have a
quorum.
quorum.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Do we have a quorum?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so we have a quorum. First public hearing, I believe, is going to be over Zoom. It's A022043.
I'm just going to interrupt you. Did you want to first
yes,
accept or
thank
decline
you.
the minutes?
Thank you. Can I have a motion on the minutes of it? Can we accept them?
I move to accept the minutes of the December 7th, 2022 meeting.
Second that?
All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Okay. Now we'll go to the public hearing, A022043, Grace Clark.
We do have affidavits of posting and mailing, so the board has jurisdiction.
Thank you, Kelly.
So Grace Clark is going to appear via Zoom.
Okay,
No one on Zoom.
Okay.
And we can probably move to the second hearing right now.
right.
We start with the applicant. We let them-
Yeah, no, I remember.
Are you ready, Susanna? Okay. The second public hearing is A020056, Litwell Realty Corp.
We also have affidavits of posting and mailing for this hearing, so the board has jurisdiction.
Are you ready for me?
Yeah.
Hi, good evening. I feel like I haven't been here in forever. Susanna Herman and consultants for the applicant L'Etoile. The application is at 11 Helens Lane in the Fish Cove neighborhood of North Sea. It's a vacant lot. It's a small lot. It's only 11,828 square feet. And they're proposing a small two-story house and a small 10-foot wide deck. We've tried to work as well as possible to meet the greatest possible setbacks on this constrained lot. There's a new IA sanitary system proposed as close to Helen's Lane as possible. It does meet the 100-foot setback to the leaching galleys. And we're providing a buffer which covers everything seaward of the proposed house and deck. And they are agreeable, as per staff recommendations, to do native landscaping over the rest of the property. The disturbed portions that are disturbed during construction will be revegetated with native vegetation, including over the sanitary system, the part that's not in the driveway. Of course, we'll have a pervious driveway. We've placed the sanitary system underneath the driveway just to have the most efficient use of space on the small lot. So, again, it's a fairly small house. The proposed total lot coverage is only 1,364 square feet. It's a modest house. And there's not a whole lot we can do with the property, so we're trying to work with what we've got and build a nice home for this family. They've owned this property for generations, and they're looking forward to making this their retirement home. So, unless anybody has any questions, I think it's fairly straightforward.
Thank you, Susanna.
Good evening, Marty Shea, Chief Environmental Analyst for the town. I did have an opportunity to revisit this property yesterday. As described by the applicant, this is a vacant lot with frontage on Fish Cove. There is an embankment along the shoreline. The property is marked by large trees with sparse ground covering vegetation. Early on in the review of this application, I did ask that the applicant have the surveyor show the location of the existing large trees on the property in the interest of preserving as many of those trees as possible. I had impressed upon the applicant from the start of this process that as this is a vacant lot and it's subject to very stringent wetland building and buffer setbacks, that every effort should be made to minimize the footprint of construction and to maximize the naturally vegetated buffer and the setback for the innovative alternative on-site wastewater treatment system. Earlier on,
Pull that over, Lou.
earlier on, when we first received this application, the landowner was proposing a swimming pool. I had raised some concerns with regards to the pool. Consequently, the plans for the pool have been abandoned. As you can see, this is a very constrained lot. It's a triangular lot. It's accessed by a private stone and earthen road. The applicant has met with the town engineer to look at what improvements, if any, would need to be made to that private road, and the remedial measures that he's asked for are somewhat minimal. Most of the common private road and access has sufficient width. It's mostly stable. There's a couple ruts and potholes that need to be filled. Some of the overhanging branches and vegetation need to be trimmed back a little bit. But that being said, there's no aspect of the needed private road improvements that will result in adverse impacts to wetlands. The design of this residence was really steered by design of the septic system. Again, the triangular configuration of this lot posed some constraints, but the applicant has put the septic system in the most landward portion of the property. The new dwelling has been pushed back as far as it can, respective of the minimum setbacks required by the Suffolk County Department of Health Services from the new sanitary system. Initially, I had suggested that they consider a slightly smaller footprint. But even if this was scaled back a little bit, it's a little bit in excess of 800 square feet. Even if it was scaled back a little bit further, it really would not increase the wetland setbacks or significantly increase the amount of set-aside land for preservation. The deck, which is really the only accessory improvement that is being planned, yes, it does run the full length of the seaward side of the dwelling, but it's at a minimum width of 10 feet. So I think it's acceptable and appropriate for this property. As you can see, the applicant has maximized the covenanted naturally vegetated wetland non-disturbance, non-fertilization buffer by bringing it right up to the edge of the deck and wrapping it around the deck. And the applicant has indicated also agreed to landscape any disturbed ground landward of the covenanted buffer with native vegetation. If you undertake a comparative review of this house and other homes in the area, most of the homes in this area are small. But most of the house footprints are a little bit larger than the dwelling that's proposed. There is one that's just a little bit smaller. Where the dwelling would be situated is at least as far back or further back from the other waterfront residences in this area. So the applicant obviously is amenable to using untreated wood for the purpose of deck construction to guard against any leachates contaminating the open waters and tidal wetlands of Fish Cove. They've asked for, consistent with our standards, a minimal 4-foot wide pervious pedestrian walk to the waterfront, and they will be seeking a trustee's permit for a very minimal dock area. The majority of the trees on this property, and there are some very large trees, are seaward of the proposed location for the residents. So the plan does achieve the goal of maximizing tree preservation. So I think, again, this is a difficult lot to build on, but I think the applicant has done everything that they can in order to try and minimize impacts and maximize preservation. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. Is there anybody on Zoom that would like to comment on this application?
No one on Zoom.
Thank you, Charlie. May I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close the public hearing. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Charlie, have we got anybody on Zoom yet? Ms. Clark?
No one's on Zoom.
Okay. Your advisory planning board will go to Christopher Mead.
Good evening, Teresa Mason from the Environment Division.
The parcel that is the subject of the planning board referral is 17 Mecox Bay Lane in Watermill. It is an agricultural reserve parcel, and they are seeking to amend their site plan to relocate the proposed agricultural building and their driveway and paddock, and to add some paddock fencing. The proposed site plan amendment actually increases the wetland setback to the agricultural building from 125 feet, which was previously approved, to 196 feet. The new septic system associated with the building is now outside of the town's wetland permitting jurisdiction, and they are proposing to install some paddock fencing at greater than 75 feet from the wetlands boundary. As such, the Conservation Board should have no objection to the modified site plan application. However, consistent with our previous referrals in 2018 and 2019, the naturally vegetated buffer, which is being established as part of the application, needs to have the existing deer fences removed from within the buffer. And then the driveway and the parking areas should be constructed with pervious materials. There's also a small section of deer fencing that runs along the northerly property line that should also be removed.
I have a motion.
Motion to send the comments to the planning board.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, good evening. Teresa Mason again from the Environment Division. The next referral is from the Zoning Board of Appeals for 59 Cedar Point Lane and 61 Cedar Point Lane LLCs. This is a project that calls for the merger of 3 parcels in order to construct four parcels to construct a new single-family dwelling. The parcels are fronting on Noyak Creek and contain town and state regulated tidal wetlands, and it's located in the town's high priority water quality improvement district. There is a pending administrative wetlands permit, which was submitted last year in December, and notices of incomplete application were sent to the applicant in January and October. Revised supplemental information was submitted on October 17th, and reinspection of the parcel was completed on December 20th. The administrative wetlands permit has not yet been issued. As such, we recommend that the Zoning Board of Appeals postpone decision on the application until the Environment Division has an opportunity to review and issue a wetlands permit, as project modifications may be required. Notwithstanding the need for an administrative wetlands permit, no determination has been made with respect to the variances on the parcel from the Conservation Board or the Environment Division.
Motion to send these comments to the Southampton Town Zoning Board of Appeals.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have an applicant for the Board of Trustees, Paulo Vento LLC.
Marty Shea, Chief Environmental Analyst for the town. The Board of Trustees have referred an application for a permit to construct a lengthy catwalk, elevated catwalk and dock on a residentially developed piece of property on Wheaton Way in Watermill. The catwalk and dock would be built with light penetrable decking and be supported by untreated posts consistent with the trustees and conservation board standards for dock and catwalk construction. I inspected the property yesterday to look at whether or not the dock should be located, the dock and catwalk location should be shifted east on the property. I should mention that the structure will cross town open space, but the easement that was filed with the subdivision of which this lot is a part did allow for construction of docks across the town open space in order to gain access to the greater Mecox Bay. Where the dock is to be located, it would be going through very dense Phragmites thickets. If you look at the eastern portion of the property, the approach to open water is a lot shorter than where the catwalk and dock is planned. However, the water that would be accessed by a shorter dock is a more environmentally sensitive area, and it is an area that's constrained by coastal bars and mudflats. So the planned location for the catwalk and dock is the best approach on this property. And the advisory comments that are before you confirm that.
Marty, do you think we can get some kind of response from the Board of Trustees on these recommendations?
Typically, if you get a response, it's an inter-office internal response first. They'll contact my office if they have any questions about your recommendations. But in this case, where the recommended advisory comments favor the plan that's before the trustees, there's likely not a need for them to provide communications back to this board.
If I'm understanding your recommendations correctly, you're asking them to move the...
No, actually, I'm not. If you, I'll read that first comment. Based upon an Environment Division inspection completed on Tuesday, December 20, 2022, the proposed catwalk/dock route, notwithstanding the length, is preferred over shorter approaches to the water, as its construction through non-diverse Phragmites stands to the west rather than across the tidal pond and coastal shoals and mudflats to the east will lessen potential adverse
I was reading into it too
impacts.
much.
So these comments are favorable with
Okay.
respect to the project plans.
I have a motion.
Motion to send the comments to the Board of Trustees.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Administrative wetland permits are in your packet. We have an application for an amended resolution to accept the withdrawal of an application on A022049. Michael Ziffler and Florence Neon, if I'm pronouncing that
Nigel.
correctly. Pardon?
Nigel.
Nigan, pronounced the G, thank you. I need a motion.
Yep, motion to accept withdrawal of application.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Therefore be it resolved that the Town Conservation Board hereby adopts an amended resolution accepting the withdrawal without prejudice of wetlands permit application number A022049. We'll move on to resolution of condition.
All in favor?
All in favor, I'm sorry.
Aye.
But we did that already. Okay. Opposed? We'll move on to,
We can probably go to the hearing
okay.
shortly. That is Grace Clark, who's coming on
All
the
right.
Zoom screen.
Good evening, Ms. Clark. Can you hear us?
Guess not.
Okay. Okay. Just let me introduce, this is a public hearing for application A022043. Grace Clark. Good evening, Ms. Clark.
Good evening, I'm sorry about the technical problems we had.
Quite all right, we're glad you're here.
Do I have to be sworn in or anything? How does this go?
Well, no, you can Do you want to comment first, or you want to let Ms. Clark comment?
No, let Ms.
No, just state your application.
Okay, my name is Grace A. Clark. Do I need the application number?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
we have it
No,
already.
we have it.
Okay.
Okay. Am I allowed to speak now, or?
Yes,
Yes, please
I'm
do.
sorry, I've never done this before.
It's okay.
I don't do Zoom either, so. I would like to start out with, my dad developed all of East Beach Drive, so this is very important to me. It took many years to finalize the deck, the sheds, and the fences and outdoor shower on my property, including hiring a lawyer and over $70,000 in many years to then dismiss him and do it on my own. In 2016, everything was finally permitted. I planted native plants numerous times for them to only die. We finally got permission from conservation that we didn't have to plant them anymore. Since applying for the permits to build a new home and install a new Fuji system, we were told we had to remove outdoor shower, all sheds on our property that have already been permitted. I do understand why, because of overall lot coverage, so I agreed to remove all the sheds and the outdoor shower, that was my great-grandfather's, on the lot to be able to build. I had a 15-foot buffer, but now I'm being asked to not only make it 20-foot buffer, but for it to have a covenant which will decrease my property value and also makes a small section of the fence encroach the tentative new buffer zone, which I'm being asked to remove, but would like to stay. I would also like to note the buffer of the 15-foot that I now have is contoured to the shape of the shoreline, water side, and property side. The proposed new 20-foot is not contoured on the property side. It's causing the buffer zone to be much wider than the 20-foot at numerous points across my property. The growth of the seaward side of the property is naturally growing and is not fertilized. I am requesting that I be allowed to leave what is naturally growing, as numerous attempts to grow native plants have all been unsuccessful. I have spoken with conservation in the past and was allowed to let it naturally occur until this new project. My property has actually been increasing water side, my property side, the land, has been increasing water side due to natural sand collection. I am requesting this to be considered in the sizing of the buffer zone and feel that the 15 feet that I now have is more than adequate for wetlands protection. I feel I have given up many things to be able to do this project and shouldn't have to agree on a covenant which is going to decrease the value of my property for my children later on in years. Especially the straight line of the property and remove a piece of the fence. Most all houses on East Beach Drive have a natural beach, as I also do. I feel I have given up a lot. I feel there are many things on East Beach Drive that are not correct. Without saying anything, people have tarred driveways. There's a septic system in front of two brand new houses now that are about 30 feet away from the wetlands, and they're not asked to do these plantings or have all these restrictions and covenants. I just ask for equal treatment, if possible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Teresa Mason from the Environment Division. The parcel is located on East Beach Drive and fronts on Woolly Pond. The subject premises, or rather, the applicant is seeking to demolish the existing house and construct a new two-story house, FEMA compliant, with an expanded floor area over what was previously pre-existing. Initially, they had come in to do an elevation and construction of a second floor addition. However, there was concerns due to the age of the home that it may not be structurally sound. We had asked that they provide an engineering letter, and they did so. Based on the engineering report, it was most cost-effective and energy efficient wise and compliant with the building codes to demolish the existing house and construct a new one. They are seeking to retain the existing seaside deck, which was previously permitted under a wetlands permit, and that was part of the requirement for the 15-foot buffer. However, because they are seeking to now demolish the house and build a new FEMA-compliant house with an expanded floor area, we are requesting that the buffer be expanded to a minimum of 20 feet, where 75 feet is required. The area of existing vegetation that we are asking to be removed is an area of weedy vegetation, not native, it's not providing any wildlife benefits. And we had also requested revegetation landward of the existing home as well for all disturbed areas. It's really important to do the native revegetation and expand the buffer because, again, the code requires a 75-foot buffer, and we're only asking for a minimum of 20 feet. And we're asking that those areas landward of the weedy vegetation that exists on the lot, that can remain, and then the vegetation where that is in question would need to be removed and planted with beach grass, which will stabilize the soils, further accrete sand, and provide wildlife habitat and cover. If you look at the aerial photographs, which I'm sure Karina will put up on the board, you'll see that the parcel to the south has a nice large buffer, which was required pursuant to the previous wetlands permits. That parcel is also not allowed to have any fences within the seaward of the landwardmost limit of the buffer, and as other properties come in to be redeveloped in the future pursuant to the required wetlands permits, we will require that they be establishing naturally vegetated buffers and removing any fences seaward of the landward limit of the buffer. Removal of fences seaward of the landward limit of the buffer is consistent with almost every single permit that the town has required and issued. The only exception is sometimes on corner lots where there are concerns with trespassing. We had initially recommended that the public hearing be waived, subject to establishment of the covenanted buffer, the native revegetation, and the removal of the fences. So we're not unhappy with the proposed project. It's just making sure that we have sufficient mitigation to offset the significant request in relief from the structures and the buffer requirement. And if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them for you.
How much is the expanded floor coverage?
They're nearly doubling the size of the home because it's a second-story addition.
They're going from 700 to 1,000.
So you're only asking
Well, let me just double check that. I think that's the footprint. So a 700 square foot footprint, and then 1044 for the new footprint. So it's 2 stories. It'll be 2,000 square feet. And just so you're aware, that is 40 feet from the wetlands, where 100 feet is required.
Right.
Okay.
Ms. Clark, if you have questions, you can ask them. Can you hear us, Ms. Clark? Turn your volume up.
You have to unmute yourself, Ms. Clark.
She did.
Do you have any questions, Ms. Clark?
She might not be able to hear. Maybe if you come closer to the microphone, she
Do you have any questions? The mics are on.
Yeah.
Mike, can you unmute yourself?
I think I heard her husband. I think her husband's on the phone with Karina.
Okay.
Yeah, just give her a moment.
She's talking to you, Karina.
Did she ever say what she previously planted that time?
There we go. We can hear you
We
now.
can hear you now.
Am I able to speak?
Yes, yes,
Yes.
you can speak. You don't need to whisper, you can speak now.
Maybe she can't hear us.
Can you hear? We can hear her, yes.
Did she hear us?
I can raise my hand.
We can hear
We
you.
can hear you. We can hear you.
What is talking about?
I think she's turned her volume down.
Oh, she's watching the video, I think, which has a delay.
Ah,
So that's what she's hearing.
Okay, Marty's talking, I'm gonna interrupt her,
No, you've got a delay.
You're live now, Miss Clark.
You have to turn your video off.
She must not, maybe she didn't hear it because she's on a delay, maybe she didn't hear what I had to say.
Can she see the
If
meeting?
her video is on and she's watching it, she's not gonna be able to hear you.
Oh.
Turn off your other video and just watch this one.
All right, just, we connect with the covenant stuff on the adjacent lot.
It's gonna be close.
I'm sorry, excuse me, can I say something?
Yes.
Yes.
Can
Yes,
you
we
hear
were
us?
waiting for you.
Turn your video off.
She must be on mute.
I think she's got two videos
She
going.
does, yeah.
Yeah.
That video needs
She has to
be
turn off the other video.
She's watching it live stream, but has a delay, and then she's on Zoom.
Right.
Excuse me, can I just say something?
Yes, yes,
Can you hear us?
Yep, go ahead.
yes, please.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, can I?
Can you
Yes.
hear?
Good evening.
Yes, okay.
Teresa said something about deer fencing on my property. I don't have any deer fencing.
no.
No. No, I didn't say anything about deer fencing.
It was the other application, Miss Clark. It was the other application.
Just,
Ms. Clark, the other application talked about deer fencing. This, I did not speak about deer fencing on your property.
You're listening to that. Shut your mouth, listen at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
I'm sorry, do you hear me?
yes.
Yes, do you hear
You
us?
do hear me, you have me muted or something. Oh, you have my sound off. I'm
It
sorry.
doesn't
My
work
husband has a
when
different laptop on.
when you're playing a video, you can't hear us.
No, that was a different laptop because we had difficulty getting on. I totally apologize, I'm sorry. I had, Teresa had said something, I have deer fencing on my property.
No,
No, I didn't say that.
That wasn't me?
No, it was a different property.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Sorry, Teresa.
No problem.
Teresa, did she hear any of your comments concerning her
she
property?
told Karina that she heard it.
Okay.
I think she, Do you have any other comments that you
Let
want
me,
to provide?
Marty Shea,
No.
Chief
Just, I don't know how
Environmental.
this goes. Do I get notified in the mail, or?
Do you have any additional comments?
I would
Greg,
like to know how I get notified of the outcoming of the meeting.
Grace, let me just offer a couple comments for your consideration. The reason that we don't like to see fences going within a buffer is we like to work towards creating an open corridor of natural area running along the entire shore. That way, there is no interference with wildlife movement, and you have an open, functional corridor of habitat. You had indicated that previously you had tried to plant the buffer and the plantings failed. Do you remember what plants you used?
Actually, no, but you gave me a whole printout of all different fancy names that cost a lot of money, and they were done a few times.
Yeah, that's the reason why, rather than create a diverse area of vegetation, we're saying to simply plug that area weedy lawn immediately seaward of the deck with beach grass. Beach grass takes very well. You install plugs. It's not costly, doesn't require any maintenance. So it should take, it's usually the easiest route to go in terms of revegetation. The beach grass is also really good because it has very deep roots, so it holds your soil, and so that in the event that you have a storm, you're less likely to lose soil in any of your property. So we're trying to make sure that area is stabilized. Beach grass provides benefits for wildlife. Every year we have winter migration of snow buntings that come into this area, and they feed heavily on the beach grass seeds. It also provides cover for cottontails and other wildlife. It's got a nice aesthetic to it. It doesn't look weedy, so we're happy to work with you to make sure that the planting works out well, and that it creates a nice aesthetic seaward of the deck.
Okay, I will do the beach grass. I do ask that you kindly vote on leaving it as the 15-foot buffer, also sculptured to the contour to the land, and not straightened off where it goes all the way to the deck of my house, and ends up being way more than the 20 foot that is being requested. Also, the covenant, like I said, my dad built, or had built that whole block. To my knowledge of speaking to every neighbor, not one house on the block has this. As far as I know, I don't understand why I'm being asked this on such a small lot. It will definitely appreciate the value of our property. I request that you please consider leaving it the 15 foot. I will do the beach grass. And as far as the fence goes, it's a little piece of fence. It's not, and if it's 15-foot buffer, it won't encroach the buffer zone. And my neighbor to the right of me, water side, has about 5 big trees going almost to the water. And he has chicken wire, and that's why I thought the deer fencing was being spoken about on my property. I just ask that you reconsider all of my, and every year the land, our our beach is getting bigger. The sand they just dredged it. We just went out a couple of weeks ago, and it's getting more and more each year in the front of our house. So it hasn't been eroding. Years ago, 20-something years ago, it was eroding. Now it seems to be going the other way.
Ms. Clark, hearing your concerns, we can certainly look to reconfigure the buffer so it's a straight 20 feet so that it doesn't cut straight across your entire yard, so that it's parallel to that existing wetland boundary. But understand the code looks for a much larger naturally vegetated buffers. And where you have a constrained lot like this, we are required to work with you to maximize the buffer. And as indicated, this is a complete redevelopment plan. The new home that would be built is bigger than the existing home. So when we get an application like that, the code directs us to try and expand the buffer to offset the impacts of that additional construction.
Okay, the buffer is bad enough, but the convent, I mean, if you were to buy a house, especially on the water, do you want to be, it has enough laws to live on the water? I wouldn't want to buy a piece of property that has that listed in the deed. And I think it's going to majorly depreciate my property.
I would just mention to you that virtually every waterfront property that comes before us, the permits that we issue for construction are conditioned upon recording of a covenant describing that buffer. In your case, you have an existing covenant, so you would simply have to amend that covenant to reference the expanded buffer. And we have a template for that. We have instructions. Both my office and the town attorney's office will get you through that process as easy as we can. But what we're asking for you to do is the same thing that we ask all waterfront properties to do when they come before us.
So the new construction on my block also is going to have a covenant? There's 2 new houses going up now?
Yes, they will. Any permits that we've issued along your road are conditioned upon establishment of covenanted naturally vegetated buffer. We're not asking that you plant the existing sand. You got a beautiful white sandy beach. We're saying you can leave that the way it is. We're just looking for where you have the scraggly weeds and you have sparse vegetation. We're just asking you to take out those weeds and plant some of that area with beach grass.
Okay, so you want the beach grass in sand?
Well, if you sod cut the weedy lawn that you have, you probably got good clean sand under that. So we're not asking you to bring any sand onto the property, and we want you to keep your existing sandy beach the way it is. We just, within that mowed weedy zone, we just want to see some planting of beach grass.
Okay.
Marty, you can speak from the table.
Okay. I'm used to going to the podium.
All right. Is there anything else, Ms. Clark?
I asked the question about the little piece of fence compared to the 4 trees and the chicken wire on the other side from the other property owner.
It's 20 feet from this line.
I mean, it's maybe like 5 or 6 feet.
Are we talking about the fence on the north side or the south side?
It's in the buffer area, and we've never allowed, have we, fences in the buffer area, because that would just start such a bad precedent. It would open up a bag of worms. And you just can't keep on comparing what's to either side of you. Those are just completely different homes or if they're building something, they will have to make an application, and as Marty said, they'll have to come before us, and the same requirements will be put on them. You know, and you bring up that you think that this is going to lower the value of your land and your house. It may really increase it as people become more aware of how important it is to preserve these areas, to plant native grasses, native plants. So that's an opinion. You know, for some people, it will maybe lower it because they want something else. But for other people, you will have done the work that they would have had to do when they buy the property. So
Right, I didn't mean the
yeah.
native plantings, I meant the covenant on the deed.
Yeah, but that's with all waterfront properties when they end up coming before us. Properties before these laws existed didn't have to have a covenant. But when somebody either renovates it or puts an addition, or wants to get something even, legalized, then it comes in that we can bring it up to where it should be.
And Ms. Clark, I should also mention that because I've offered to reconfigure the recommended buffer so that it's exactly 20 feet landward of your wetland boundary, there's only, you won't need to take out all of the existing fence seaward of the deck, only that end portion that encroaches within that 20-foot buffer.
It should be minimal, less than
It sh-
5 or 6 feet at most.
Yeah, at most, it's gonna be like 5 feet or less. So the remaining fence on the seaward side of the deck, landward of the 20-foot buffer, can remain as is.
Okay, so you're leaving the 20-foot buffer, but you're reconstructing it in contour
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
on both sides, water side and house side?
There's no covenant on the house side. We had recommended that you revegetate with native plants on the house side, which, again, can be accomplished with beach grass, but there's no covenant on the landward side. It's only on the seaward side.
Right, no, I'm talking about the sculpture, the shape of the buffer zone.
Right, it's going to run parallel to the wetlands boundary, so it's going to be more of an arched shape rather than a straight line.
Okay, so
Okay?
you're removing the straight line.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
And the recommendation for the rest of the property, it's not to establish a wild, naturally vegetated buffer. It's just to landscape with native plants. So there are a lot of plants to choose from. We can work with you or your landscaper to come up with a good plan for the rest of the property that you're happy with, that creates a good aesthetic for the property.
No, I don't have a problem with the beach grass at all. I started to think the comment was that if my grandson goes to run in front of the house, he won't be able to walk on my own property.
No, not at all. Not at all. It's just on the seaward side of the house.
And it is still private property, so you can walk through the beach grass. We also allow for a 4-foot wide sand path through the beach grass, so you don't have to walk through the grass to get to that sand beach.
And again, it has to be only where the growth or greenage is growing now.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else, Ms. Clark?
No, that's all. Thank you.
Is there anybody else on Zoom that wants to speak on this application?
No, sir.
Okay, may we have a motion, please, to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second?
All right, thank you.
Good night, Ms.
Ms.
Clark.
Clark. Good night.
Good.
All in
Night.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Have a nice evening.
You too.
You too,
Good
Tracy.
night.
Okay, let's go to the conditional approvals, the resolution for conditional approvals. A022015, Elizabeth G. Young, Revocable Trust. Do I have a motion?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Therefore, be it resolved that a conditional wetland permit approval be granted to Elizabeth G. Young Revocable Trust for the proposed project under the terms and conditions set forth therein, and that the term of such approval shall be valid for a period of 3 years from the date of adoption of the resolution of the conditional approval. A022028, Denise Sokolich, and she is requesting to be postponed till January 11th.
Motion to postpone to January 11th, 2020.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A022031, Mark Savino, 220 Irrevocable Trust. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Be it further resolved that a conditional wetland permit approval be granted to Mark Savino, 2020 Irrevocable Trust for the proposed project upon the terms and conditions set forth therein, and that the term of such approval shall be valid for a period of 3 years from the date of adoption of the resolution of continual approval. 8022053, B. Zirk, 37 Peconic Bay, LLC.
Notation?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Or be it resolved that a conditional wetland permit be approved, permit approval be granted to B. Zirk, 37 Peconic Bay, LLC, for the proposed project upon the terms and conditions set forth therein, and that the term of such approval shall be valid for a period of 3 years from the date of adoption of the resolution of conditional approval. A022062, Vincent Toomey and Joanna Hawkins, and they are requesting a postponement to January 11th.
Motion to postpone to January 11th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A022066, 142C, Newtown Road LLC, and 142D, Newtown Road LLC.
Move to issue.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Be it further resolved that a conditional wetland permit approval be granted to 142C Newtown LLC and 142D Newtown LLC for the proposed project upon the terms and conditions set forth therein, and that the terms of such approval shall be valid for a period of 3 years from the date of adoption of the resolution of conditional approval. A022075, Roger Morales and Jennifer Morales.
Move to issue.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Therefore, be it resolved that a conditional wetland permit approval be granted to Roger Morales and Jennifer Morales of a proposed project upon the terms and conditions set forth therein, and that the term of such approval shall be valid for a period of 3 years from the date of adoption of the resolution of conditional approval. A022094, Walker Development LLC.
Move to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Therefore, be it resolved that a conditional wetland permit approval be granted to Walker Development LLC for the proposed project upon the terms and conditions set forth therein, and that the term of such approval shall be valid for a period of 3 years from the date of adoption of the resolution of conditional approval. Let us move on to preliminary reviews for the secret determination. A021076, Nicholas Christopher and Penelope Christopher, and they are requesting a postponement to January 11th, 2023.
Move to postpone to January 11th, 2023?
All in favor? Opposed? A021085, SCI Catarpa.
Good evening again, Marty Shea, Chief Environmental Analyst for the town. This application relates to an existing residentially developed property that has frontage on the Little Peconic Bay. There is a preliminary advisory report on file dated December 19, 2022. The existing home benefits from a Bay Beach that was reconstructed and renourished by the Suffolk County Department of Public Works as part of the dredging of Woolly Pond Inlet. The applicant is seeking a wetlands permit because notwithstanding the renourishment, they want to gain approval to install stone armor along the shoreline of the property. This is an application for which we need significant additional information to make a determination. As such, I'm recommending that a hearing be held.
Motion to have public hearing?
Do we have a date?
Yes, February 8th.
Okay.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Therefore be resolved that the Town Conservation Board hereby schedules a public hearing for February 8th, 2023, and that a notice of public hearing be published in the town designated newspaper pursuant to Chapter 325, Section 325, 8C of the Town Code. Okay. A022012, Duretti Fufa, and they are requesting a postponement to January 11th, 2023.
Motion to postpone to January 11th?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A022061, Marcella Silverman and Forster Mayer.
This application relates to an existing residentially developed flag lot that takes access off of the west side of Major's Path in the hamlet of North Sea. There is a preliminary advisory report on file dated December 19, 2022. The application has been made in order to legalize various accessory improvements at the property that did receive a building permit. However, the landowner never sought the requisite town wetland permit prior to construction. Those accessory improvements include installation of an elevated pool and pool deck along with a hot tub. The basement was converted to living area. There are various wood entry improvements that need to be addressed, as well as a framed outdoor shower shed and driveway reconfiguration. The residence and pool is situated fairly high above the wetlands. Immediately beyond the pool deck, you have forested land that descends rapidly to freshwater wetlands consisting of a red maple swamp that are associated with Little Fresh Pond. In order to offset the impacts of the construction, we have provided a sketch to the applicant showing a recommended covenanted wetland preservation area, naturally vegetated buffer, which the applicant has agreed to. We have asked that a fence along the eastern side of the property be removed, and the elevated pool and deck at present does not benefit by a code compliant pool enclosure fence. So we've asked that a enclosure fence be installed tight around that elevated pool and pool deck. This is an application for which we have sufficient information to make a determination. As such, recommending that the hearing requirement be waived.
Motion to waive the public hearing?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Now therefore be it resolved that the Town Conservation Board hereby waives the public hearing requirement pursuant to Chapter 325, Section 325-8E of the Town Code. A022064, Alara Hoffman and Stephen Hardigan. are requesting a postponement to January 11th.
Motion to postpone to January 11,
Second.
2023.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A022067, Antonio Beltramani and Anne Louise Lippman Beltramani.
This application relates to an existing residentially developed property on the south
Beltramini.
side of South Country Road in the hamlet of West Hampton. There is a preliminary advisory report on file dated December 13, 2022. As indicated by the aerial photograph on the screen, the property is marked by very extensive wooded wetlands and a creek on the western portion of the parcel. The application was made because a stop work order notice violation were issued as the landowner had commenced construction of replacement of the pool deck with an elevated patio. Upon visiting the property, we also found that there were unauthorized retaining walls immediately west of the residence and pool deck that needed to be addressed as well. There had been a former pre-existing wood tie wall along the outer periphery of the pool deck, but the wall had been reconfigured in subsequent years such that it's right up against the wetland boundary. I have asked that the applicant remove the northerly retaining walls, and there's a small rock-lined ornamental pond which they've agreed to. As far as the southerly unauthorized retaining wall, I have asked that they shift that to the immediate periphery of the elevated pool patio, which they've also agreed to. I've asked that the patio be constructed as a pervious patio to allow for immediate rainwater infiltration, thereby negating the need for installation of drywalls. I also provided a sketch of a recommended buffer for the property, which the applicant has agreed to in concept. I did work with the applicant on some minor refinements to that buffer to afford better access around the periphery of the house. And the applicant is looking to reforest portions of the buffer that are being maintained as lawn. So all of the issues have been addressed with this application. We do have sufficient information to make a determination. As such, I'm recommending that the hearing requirement be waived.
Motion to waive the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Therefore, be it resolved, the Town Conservation Board hereby waives the public hearing requirement pursuant to Chapter 325, Section 325 of the Town Code. A022093, Andrea Lusso and Maria Stoyanova.
This application relates to a residentially developed property in the Old Harbor Colony community in Hampton Bays. The application has been made in order to gain this board's approval to construct a swimming pool that would necessitate removal of an existing deck and reconfiguration of patios. They have provided a concept plan for an expanded naturally vegetated wetland non-disturbance, non-fertilization buffer. Virtually the same application had previously been made to this board. At least a couple of years ago, the application was withdrawn. In the interim, I have been working closely with the applicant on redesign of the project plans. However, at this time, we're not in full agreement as to where that pool should be built. The buffer concept and revegetation plan otherwise looks acceptable. So this is an application for which additional information is needed in order to make a determination. As such, recommending that a public hearing be held.
Motion for public hearing?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Therefore be it resolved that the Town Conservation Board hereby schedules a public hearing for February 8th, 2023, and that a notice of public hearing be published in the town designated newspaper pursuant to Chapter 325, Section 325-8C of the Town Code. The next is a covenant interpretation or amendment, A022095, 91 Cobb Isle LLC, and the applicant is requesting a postponement to January 11th, 2023.
Motion to postpone to
23.
January.
You said 22, I think.
Did I say 22?
Mhm.
I did?
They say you did.
That's
I
what I
thought I
I
said,
was 23, but maybe,
Oh, okay.
I thought I said 23.
Let's motion to postpone to
apologize.
January 2023.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Our next Conservation Board meeting will be Wednesday, January 11th, 2023.
See you guys next
May I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I don't imagine there's any opposition. Everybody, please have a very happy holiday.